Now, unfortunately, time is against us, so it's a whistle-stop tour of your Doctor Who experiences. I wanted to ask you both how you first got into Doctor Who. What led you to Doctor Who, both of you, in 1965?
Yeah.
How did you get there, Mary?
Go ahead, Mary.
My agent rang and said, could you fly on a wire for Doctor Who? And as I trained as a dancer, I said yes, unlike another chap who was in it who said yes but hadn't trained as a dancer. It was filmed at Ealing Studios, where there was a large tank of water. We didn't actually go in the water. We were hoisted up on wires, and those of us who had dance experience did the graceful movement, and the poor boy who didn't hung like a sack. But the camera was under the tank, if you see what I mean, through the side. So it looks as though we're in the water, but actually we're up above it on a wire. That's how I got my part.
Norman?
And me, I'd been living in Paris a few years, and I came back from Paris, and I was walking along the BBC, along the corridor towards the bar, and suddenly I saw a natural place to be going, and somebody coming towards me said, Norman. I hadn't seen him for years. I'd worked for him before, and he was one of the Doctor Who directors. And at that time, I'd grown a beard. And he said, you're right, absolutely what I want. Didn't care whether I could act or not. So come and read a bit of Doctor Who afterwards, after lunch, which I did. And they said, you're exactly right for Ulf.
And
that's how it all
Douglas
started.
Was,
yeah, with Douglas Camfield.
Right.
There were a few other directors, but Dougie was the one I mainly worked for.
Did you become part of Douglas's rep company, as it were? Because you were
I
in the
did
invasion
work
as
quite
well,
a lot, yes, that's right. I worked quite a lot for Douglas, and his son, who is still alive today, is my godfather. My
godson.
My godson. God, the marbles are getting a bit rusty. So
now, your William Hartnell story still exists.
Yeah.
The story you were in, The Mythmakers, doesn't exist anymore, Mary.
But I'm still here.
Yes, well, thank God, because The Mythmakers, there is very few photographs or records of it, apart from the audio. What memories do you have of the sets, the costumes, the studio environment? Or?
Not a lot of William Hartnell, because that was the very first story, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And I was a Trojan woman, whatever one's idea of a Trojan woman was all marching around. But what I did know, the Daleks, I knew Michael Scott Martin, who was the first operator for Daleks, and a whole group of actors with the same agent, more or less, always got the small parts at the BBC, whether it was foreign waiters or maids and citizens in Julius Caesar. We did indeed have directors that rather liked us or directors that didn't like us, if you know what I mean. And I always remember going to interviews, try and say what people want to hear. Don't be an anarchist at a BBC interview, madam, you know. And some of the work you got, some of it you didn't. But the Underwater Menace was the main one for me. And Julia Smith was quite foisty, I'd say, and she wasn't at all pleased with the boy who'd said he could fly and hung like a thing, you know, a sack of potatoes, you might say. But she was very pleased with myself and another lady who is, I don't know where she is now, but we both had dance experience. So my advice to people wanting to be celebrities today is to learn to do something, even if it's ice skating or tree climbing, and, you know, do it that way, not just being a celebrity on sort of reality television would be my advice.
And
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And what comparing the two doctors, because you've actually worked with William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, how did they compare with each other? What were your memories of William Hartnell?
As far as I can remember, well, Bill was lovely, a nice man, he really was. He had his little temperamental moments where somebody would be asked to go and dig him out of the bar. So when he had a temperament, he went to the bar straight away.
Right.
So I liked to go there because he'd buy me a drink. Pat Troughton, a very different bloke. I didn't know him quite so well as I knew Bill,
Right.
but both nice men.
From what I gather, Patrick's a much more private person than,
Yes,
than
I
Bill.
would think so, yes.
A bit more
Bill-
kind of avuncular, I guess.
Yes,
Or,
yes, you're right. Bill
Right.
certainly was.
Right. Those recording the invasion. What are your memories of that experience?
My God, we're going back a few years now, aren't we? I remember the Time Meddler, wasn't it?
Oh yes,
The
that's
one.
that's 65.
That one, I remember that better.
Right.
Because, what was it I was trying to think of just now about it? Quite honestly, I can't remember too many things about it. Now, I mean, we are talking about 30 years ago.
Years ago. Yeah. Does it surprise the pair of you then, given that we're talking about it a number of years later, that we are still talking about it?
Yes,
No.
it does me. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great tribute. The fact that it is. So
Yeah.
there is a great interest in the Doctor Who's. I think it's, and long may it go on.
What do you think it is about Doctor Who that's
Magic.
right?
Of
Yes,
witchcraft, and it lends itself to so many stories. I'm always amazed that Z-Cars, which I was in the very first one, I was arrested in that. That's never caught on in the same way. Although they had wonderful stories, it's limited to the time it was made in. But Doctor Who can go on forever.
Yeah.
You know, people love magic. They love witches and spectres and spells, which is 12th night today, so watch out on the way home. You know.
But it's changed tremendously from
Yeah.
our day, shall I say, to how it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
What do you think of the show now? Do you ever see it, or is it just something that's...
Oh, it's wonderful now. I mean, in our days, it was done very frugally. I mean, now it's so elaborate, it could be in Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood copy it in many ways in their films. So, but it was a wonderful experience we all had at the BBC.
I've
And
gotta
I
say
wish
no.
more of these old programmes would be shown on the
Yes,
BBC. You know,
Yes, I agree.
people.
I've got to say no to that question.
Right,
I haven't seen a Doctor Who for a long time.
right.
And it's when I get with the grandchildren who love it. And then, you know, they want to sit down and have a look at it. So I think, well, why not? So I have a look and I think, it's not quite the same now.
Right. Are they pleased that their granddad was in the original Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah.
Is
yeah,
it a
they
little...
love it. Yes.
Yes.
They love it.
Yeah. Where does Doctor Who fit into both of your overall careers? What is it for you? Norman, was it just one more part out of so many you've got on your CV?
No, it wasn't. I mean, the enjoyment of doing it was great because the people, other things, I was doing quite a few episodes, but other things, you know, you come along, you do it, you say hello to people, that's it, done, over, finished. But Doctor Who, I remember it because I was going
Yeah.
along. I mean,
Right.
I did 7, I think. 7 of the Time Meddler. And then
4 parts, Time Meddler.
4 was
Yes.
it? And how many were the other one?
I think you did 2 parts of the invasion.
Oh, right,
Ah.
right.
And
So-
of course, in those days, we had weeks and weeks to do the things. Now actors have to go to Salford, and they're lucky if they get 2 or 3 days.
Salford?
Say on, yes, with the new studios. Yeah,
Didn't even know that.
they've moved. They've told the television centre, which was built when we were doing stuff at Lime
Yeah,
Grove, Julius
right.
Caesar and all those things. And now they've sold it for, I can't think why, because London is London, and there's already Granada Television in Manchester anyway, and Birmingham have TV studios. It's not as though London has taken over totally, you know. It's a very odd decision.
That's true.
So Mary, you did Lime Grove, you did Riverside,
Yeah.
and Television Centre, I presume.
And
How-
Ealing Studios for the tank.
Of course.
Yeah.
How did they all compare? Lime Grove must have been...
Oh, Lime Grove was, of course, very characteristic BBC, as has been seen in a recent serial called The Hour. And it captures quite a lot of the ladies that were secretaries. They were quite sort of forbidding in a way. You had to mind your P's and Q's, you know, and there was a lot of smoking in those days, of course, but it was quite characteristic. And a lot of productions were done there, including the first one I was in, called A Kiss for Cinderella, about 1959, where I played a servant with about 12 lines, and Michael Aldrich and all sorts of people who are now no longer with us. But you really had to behave yourself a bit, you know. And you had to save your wildness for when the show had closed, and you might go on to the Salisbury or some actors' club. And I met a lot of people like Michael Caine and Terence Stamp. But any bad behaviour was not in Lime Grove.
Does anybody have any questions for Norman and Mary? This very quick interview? Anybody? No? Good. Okay, so final question for you. Looking back on Doctor Who, what's your kind of overriding emotion when you think back to your parts in Doctor Who?
You go ahead, Mary, while I think about this.
I was quite amazed when I was on this wire, because it was years and years since I'd been in a pantomime and tried out flying. In Aladdin, I was in Aladdin twice, and it was a wonderful sensation. One could really let go and sort of, you know, make what we call fish-like sort of things. And I remember that very well indeed. And I remember a lot of the things I was in, and there's never been a period quite like from 1958 to about 1975. The BBC television people were looking for actors. I have to say, I don't think they are so much now. But anyone who really had a bit of experience in the theatre first, in repertory, and in my case in opera with Peter Hall dancing, you could have a go and you'd get some jobs and you'd actually get paid for them, which was nice. What about you, Norman?
Memory, you've got a better memory than me, Mary. Now, I can remember doing the Doctor Who's, I can remember starting it and meeting Bill Hartnell, who was a lovely man, I must say. All the other people, Wendy Padbury, I believe, is going to be here this afternoon. And there were quite a few others, but I think they've gone up there now. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed doing it. I can say that. I can enjoy all the other things that I did since leaving RADA, drama school. So really, that's about all I can think of, because it seems to go back a long time.
I know. After I was about 40, which is a dangerous age for actors, unless you're Judi Dench or Maggie Smith, I could feel it sort of going away a bit. So I went to Italy, to Rome, and appeared in the English-speaking theatre in an Agatha Christie play called The Hollow. And I have to say, Burt Lancaster came to see it, but he didn't make any comments after. But it was quite amazing to be in Rome, sort of. After 3 months, one was suddenly recognised on buses, you know. So that's where I carried on from there. But my best years were from 1958 to about 74 or 5 when I left. 74, I think I left. That's it. But here we still are.
Here we still are.
Here we still
but
are.
for the grace of God.
Dead, but we won't lie down, I often say to people.
And on that note,
Yes.
thank you very much. I'm so sorry it's been very short and sweet, but thank you very much for coming. Norman, Hartley
you.
and Mary.